The dawn of October 21st, 2022, in Lima, began with the appearance of a woman the entire country had been searching for over the previous 48 hours. Gabriella Sevilla stepped out onto the porch of a relative's home. She was disoriented and alone. Her body showed signs of physical distress, including scratches and bruises. But something else immediately captured everyone's attention. The abdomen of this 30-year-old woman, which just 2 days earlier had clearly appeared to show a 9th-month pregnancy, was now completely flat. Her daughter Martina, whose birth was expected at any moment, was nowhere in sight. Paramedics rushed Gabriella to the Central Military Hospital, the same medical center where her mother had worked for nearly 4 decades. Inside the emergency room, chaos erupted. While doctors examined Gabriella, police and rescue teams focused on one urgent question: where was the newborn daughter? Gabriella could not clearly explain how she had ended up at her relative's home or what had happened during the previous 30 hours. What had begun as a nationwide search for a missing pregnant woman had now become a criminal investigation into the disappearance of a newborn. To understand how Gabriella ended up on that doorstep, we need to go back to the evening of October 19th. At approximately 7:30 p.m., Gabriella was alone in her apartment. Her partner, Ramiro Galvez, the father of her expected child, had been away since the previous day. Gabriella began making urgent calls to her parents and Ramiro. She said she was experiencing intense contractions. Then she said her water had broken. According to her mother, Gabriella also reported bleeding. A friend advised her not to wait for anyone and to go directly to the hospital. Gabriella asked Ramiro and her parents to meet her at the clinic where she claimed she had been receiving prenatal care throughout her pregnancy. She left the apartment and entered a taxi. While sitting in the back seat, Gabriella took a photograph of the vehicle's interior and sent it to her mother. The photograph showed the back of the front seat. The driver's face was not visible. After that message, all contact was lost. Gabriella's phone went dead. Meanwhile, at the maternity ward, Ramiro and Gabriella's mother were waiting for her. But Gabriella never arrived. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. Hospital staff checked their records. There was no patient named Gabriella Sevilla. She had not been admitted. Her name did not appear in the clinic's records at all. The family began checking other hospitals across Lima. Again, there was no sign of her. Around midnight, Ramiro and Gabriella's parents went to the police station. A missing person report was filed. The missing persons division was called in because the situation was critical. A woman believed to be in the final stage of pregnancy had disappeared. By the early hours of October 20th, the case was no longer a private family matter. News of Gabriella's disappearance spread across social media. Her photographs, description, and last known movements were shared throughout Lima. By morning, the story had become national news. Television stations were reporting the disappearance, while authorities searched for Gabriella and her unborn child. Police expanded their efforts. Hospitals and maternity clinics were checked. Possible transportation routes were investigated. Authorities even increased security at airports and border crossings in case a newborn had been taken out of the country. Gabriella's mother made a public appeal for information. The entire country was looking for the same thing: a missing pregnant woman, and the baby everyone believed she was carrying. Then, after more than 30 hours, Gabriella suddenly returned. But instead of providing answers, she gave investigators a story that would completely change the case. Gabriella said she had been abducted. According to her account, the taxi driver suddenly changed direction, claiming he knew a faster route to the clinic. Gabriella said she then lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was inside an enclosed room. 2 men were there. One of them was dressed in white. She claimed the man forced her through the delivery process. Gabriella said she never heard the baby's cry. She remembered only saying the name Martina before losing consciousness again. She also claimed that the man threatened her. According to Gabriella, he warned her not to contact the police and threatened her family and Ramiro. She said she was told that she would eventually receive her daughter's body. It was a horrifying account. If true, investigators were dealing with a violent kidnapping and the disappearance of a newborn. But detectives could not simply accept the story. They had to verify every detail. And that was when the first serious contradictions began. The first problem appeared when investigators checked the transportation story. Gabriella's mother had previously indicated that her daughter had used a ride service on the night she disappeared. Investigators contacted the company. There was no record of a ride requested under Gabriella's name or phone number. The photograph she had sent from inside the vehicle provided no useful identification. There was no driver's face, no license plate, no clear information about the vehicle. Then investigators contacted the clinic where Gabriella claimed she had received prenatal care throughout her pregnancy. The clinic confirmed that Gabriella had been a patient, but not for maternity care. Her medical records showed consultations for unrelated medical issues. There were no documented prenatal checkups, no pregnancy monitoring, no laboratory tests connected to pregnancy, and no recorded visits to an obstetrician. For investigators, this was the first major break in the case. Until then, the investigation had been treated as a high-profile abduction. Now, another possibility had to be considered. Was Gabriella actually pregnant? The question became even more serious when forensic specialists examined her blood. One detail immediately stood out. There was essentially no human chorionic gonadotropin, or HCG, detected. HCG is a hormone associated with pregnancy and can remain detectable for some time after childbirth. But Gabriella's results did not support the idea that she had recently given birth. The medical evidence pointed toward a startling conclusion. There had been no recent pregnancy or childbirth. Authorities announced that the search for baby Martina was being called off. The nationwide search had been based on the belief that a newborn was missing. Now investigators concluded there was no newborn to find. Gabriella rejected the conclusion. She held a press conference and insisted that her pregnancy had been real. She claimed to have recordings of a fetal heartbeat from several checkups. She said she possessed ultrasound images. Gabriella also questioned the medical examination performed at the military hospital. She argued that the doctors had not conducted a complete evaluation and had not performed all the tests she believed were necessary. Investigators offered her the opportunity to undergo additional supervised testing under the oversight of prosecutors. Gabriella declined. Meanwhile, her parents continued defending her. They said they had watched her abdomen grow over the course of 9 months. They had participated in preparations for the baby. They had attended the baby shower. They believed the pregnancy was real. Her close friends said the same thing. One friend, who had been chosen as Martina's godmother, gave interviews defending Gabriella. She said she had seen ultrasound results and had helped prepare the nursery. To the people closest to Gabriella, the pregnancy had seemed completely real. But investigators began examining the evidence behind those beliefs. And that investigation led them to Ramiro. His doubts had started weeks before Gabriella disappeared. One of the ultrasound images Gabriella had shown him listed August 28th as the expected due date. But by the middle of October, nearly 2 months had passed. There had been no delivery, no hospitalization, and no medical explanation for why the pregnancy was supposedly continuing so far beyond the projected date. Ramiro began checking the medical documents Gabriella had brought home. He contacted one of the specialists whose name appeared on the paperwork. The doctor gave him an alarming answer. He had never examined Gabriella. He had never issued the document, and the signature appeared to be forged. Even the professional license number did not correctly correspond to the physician. Ramiro continued his investigation. He consulted additional gynecologists. None could confirm the pregnancy from the information available to him. Inside the apartment, another strange pattern had developed. During the final weeks of the supposed pregnancy, Gabriella would not allow Ramiro to touch her abdomen. The couple had also stopped sharing a bed. Ramiro sometimes accompanied her to the clinic entrance, but he was never allowed inside the examination room. Gabriella always entered alone. At first, Ramiro questioned whether the baby was actually his. But after discovering the questionable documents, his suspicion became much more serious. He began to believe that there might never have been a pregnancy at all. One day before Gabriella disappeared, Ramiro confronted her. He had already told her parents about the discrepancies he had discovered. Gabriella reportedly became emotional and cried, but she did not provide an explanation that resolved the contradictions. The following evening, she told everyone that labor had begun. She said her water had broken. She said she was bleeding. Then she left the apartment. That was the beginning of the 30 hours that would eventually transform the entire case. Investigators later reconstructed her movements using transportation information, medical records, surveillance footage, and witness accounts. One detail stood out. Gabriella left without a hospital bag. There were no obvious baby supplies, no clear medical documents. She apparently entered a vehicle she had flagged down directly from the street, which meant the journey would not appear in official rideshare records. Minutes later, her phone was turned off. Investigators began considering whether the disappearance had been deliberately planned, but they still needed to determine what had happened during the hours when Gabriella was gone. And that investigation would raise even more questions about the injuries she displayed when Gabriella returned on October 21st, doctors documented scratches and bruises on her body. At first, those injuries appeared to support her account. She had claimed that she had been abducted, held against her will, and forced through a delivery. But investigators later examined the injuries more closely. Forensic analysis suggested that the pattern of some of the marks could have been consistent with a staged confrontation. The possibility that the injuries had been deliberately created became another serious problem for Gabriella's story. She had also claimed that she had been drugged, but she declined to undergo a complete toxicology examination. Because of that, investigators could not independently confirm whether she had been given any controlled substance. Then came another important detail. Gabriella never filed a formal police report claiming that her newborn daughter Martina was missing. That was unusual. The entire country had been told that a baby had been taken. Yet there was no confirmed newborn, no confirmed delivery, and no independent evidence that Martina had ever existed. Investigators began reconstructing the events from October 19th to October 21st. According to their findings, Gabriella left her apartment alone at around 7:30 p.m. She claimed she was in labor, but she did not take the items normally associated with an imminent hospital delivery. Her phone was switched off shortly after she sent the photograph from inside the vehicle. She then remained out of contact for roughly 30 hours. No hospital recorded her admission. No maternity ward recorded a delivery. And no surveillance footage provided clear evidence of the violent abduction she had described. The location where Gabriella claimed the kidnapping had occurred also failed to produce convincing evidence of a struggle. There was no confirmed pursuit, no clearly identified attacker, and no verified vehicle connected to the alleged crime. Investigators eventually concluded that the disappearance may have been an attempt to create an explanation for the absence of a baby. If the pregnancy had never existed, Gabriella would eventually have to explain why there was no child. The kidnapping story provided an answer. According to the investigative theory, the supposed disappearance occurred after Ramiro had already begun questioning the pregnancy and discovering problems with the medical documents. The timing was significant. Gabriella's supposed due date had already passed. Her partner was asking difficult questions, and the pregnancy could no longer continue indefinitely without producing a child. Then came the alleged labor, then the disappearance, then the story of a kidnapped newborn. Investigators believed the sequence was not accidental. They suspected that Gabriella had disappeared voluntarily and later returned with a story designed to explain why the expected baby was missing. But the case became more complicated when experts and the public began discussing a possible psychological explanation. One condition mentioned was pseudocyesis. In simple terms, pseudocyesis is a false pregnancy in which a woman can genuinely believe she is pregnant while experiencing physical symptoms associated with pregnancy. The abdomen may enlarge. Menstrual cycles may stop. Nausea and other pregnancy-related symptoms can appear. The experience can be extremely convincing. But there was an important limitation in Gabriella's case. Authorities never publicly confirmed that she had been diagnosed with pseudopsoriasis. It remained a possible explanation rather than an established fact. And even if such a condition had been involved, it would not automatically explain the disputed medical documents or the alleged staging of an abduction. Those questions remained part of the criminal investigation. By July 2023, the National Police of Peru had completed its investigative report and submitted its findings to prosecutors. A formal criminal investigation followed. Gabriella faced allegations involving false statements, document forgery, and the use of falsified private documents. Ramiro became the plaintiff. According to the prosecution's allegations, he had suffered significant financial and emotional harm. From February to October 2022, he had paid expenses connected to what he believed was a real pregnancy. He had helped prepare the apartment. He had purchased furniture and clothing for the expected child. He had prepared himself to become a father. And then everything collapsed. The financial loss was only one part of the damage. The emotional impact was much greater. Ramiro had believed he was preparing for the birth of his daughter. His family had prepared too. Friends had celebrated. A nursery had been created. A baby shower had been held. The name Martina had become part of the family's future. Then investigators concluded that the child had never been born. Gabriella's parents continued to defend her. They said they had personally witnessed changes in her body and believed the pregnancy was genuine. Her friends also struggled to accept the official conclusion. They had seen the preparations. They had heard Gabriella talk about medical appointments. Some said they had seen ultrasound images. For them, the pregnancy had seemed impossible to fake. But the investigation was no longer based only on what people believed they had seen. It was based on medical records, forensic evidence, surveillance, and documents. And those pieces of evidence told a very different story. By this point, Gabriella's case had moved far beyond a missing person investigation. It had become a legal case involving deception, disputed medical evidence, and a woman whose version of events was increasingly difficult to reconcile with the available facts. But the story was still not over. Because even after the investigation began, Gabriella's life would slowly disappear from public view. And the final question would remain: what would happen to the woman at the center of one of Peru's most unusual criminal investigations? After the investigation became public, Gabriella Sevilla gradually withdrew from the spotlight. The social media accounts where she had once shared photographs of her travels, adventures, and daily life were deactivated. She stopped giving interviews. She stopped appearing in public. Her lawyer eventually stated that Gabriella was receiving psychological care. But that statement did not resolve the central mystery. Was the pregnancy deliberately fabricated? Did Gabriella genuinely believe she was pregnant? Or was there a psychological condition behind what had happened? The possibility of pseudopsoriasis remained part of the public discussion, but authorities never confirmed it as Gabriella's official diagnosis. The legal process continued. The investigation that had begun in 2023 moved through the Peruvian justice system, but a final ruling did not come quickly. As of 2025, no final sentence had been handed down. For the families involved, the consequences were already permanent. Ramiro had lost the future he thought he was building. Gabriella's parents had to confront evidence that contradicted what they believed they had witnessed for months. Friends who had celebrated the pregnancy were left questioning how they could have been so certain. And the nursery remained. A room prepared for a child who never arrived. Clothes had been purchased. Furniture had been arranged. A name had been chosen: Martina. For a short time, that name represented a real future to everyone around Gabriella. But according to the evidence presented by investigators, there had never been a newborn to find. No hospital confirmed a birth. No medical record established a pregnancy. No biological evidence supported a recent delivery. and no credible evidence confirmed the existence of a kidnapped baby. The search that had once mobilized an entire country therefore ended in an extraordinary way. Not with the discovery of a missing child, but with investigators concluding that there was no missing child at all. The case also raised a broader question about how easily appearances can become accepted as facts. For months, Gabriella's pregnancy seemed obvious to the people around her. Her changing appearance appeared to confirm it. Her words appeared to confirm it. The baby shower appeared to confirm it. The ultrasound images appeared to confirm it. The medical documents appeared to confirm it. But when investigators began testing those assumptions against independent evidence, the story started to collapse. That is what made the case so disturbing. The most important evidence was not something investigators found. It was something they failed to find. No pregnancy, no delivery, no baby, and no confirmed kidnapping. Yet the consequences were very real. Police resources had been mobilized. Hospitals had been searched. The public had been asked to help find Gabriella. Authorities had even taken precautions at airports and border crossings because they believed a newborn might have been unlawfully transported. All of it had been triggered by a story that investigators eventually concluded was false. But what happened inside Gabriella's mind during those months may never be fully understood. If she knowingly created the story, then the case represents an extraordinary level of deception. If she genuinely believed she was pregnant, then the psychological dimension becomes much more complicated. And if the truth lies somewhere between those possibilities, only Gabriella herself may know exactly what happened. As the years passed, she disappeared from public view. The headlines faded. The interviews stopped. The investigation remained in the legal system. But one image remained difficult to forget. An empty nursery. A room waiting for a little girl named Martina. A child everyone expected to meet. A child whose birth was supposed to be one of the happiest moments in the family's life. Instead, the room became a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. The story of Gabriella Sevilla began with a desperate search for a pregnant woman. It ended with a question far more disturbing than where she had gone. What if the baby everyone had been searching for had never existed at all? And perhaps that is why this case continues to leave such a lasting impression. Because sometimes the darkest mystery is not about who took someone. It is about how an entire story can become real to so many people until the evidence proves otherwise. And in the end, the search for Martina did not lead investigators to a missing child. It led them to an empty